Hey, folks, happy holidays and a Merry Christmas as we record on December the 23rd. Usually we work on Tuesdays for the It's Official podcast. Jeff Siegel, Jeremy Plonk here, working a little early time so that you can get on with your Christmas Eve on Tuesday. Of course, we will rebroadcast this on Tuesday for those of you looking for it in its normal time slot. Each week we take on 5 hot topics in horse racing. Nothing hotter this week, Jeff, than opening day at Santa Anita coming up on Thursday. It's the 90th meet, the championship meet, the classic meet, they call it now, at Santa Anita during the winter. And all the great stakes races front-ended on the card coming up on Thursday, front-ended for the weekend on the opening day card. Should be a fantastic day of racing.
It should, because a lot of times on opening day you have these stakes races and their courses are fine, they're great, but the competition is slanted. You go into the races rack and every horse is 4 to 5 even money, and they deserve to be, and they usually win. It's great to watch them, but if you want to gamble on them, you really can't do it. This year it's different. You've got that element of having terrific racing, but it's also great gambling. I mean, there are every race, well, not every race, but most of them have contention that you can bet on and get a decent price and still think you're watching a championship quality type race. And it's just the way it came out. But the weather's going to be great. That's going to be fun. We've got a couple of scratches that haven't been announced yet, because this year they're going to, at least the first couple of weeks of the meeting, they're going to announce only scratches you'll have is the morning of the race. But some of the information trickles down, so we'll talk about that as well. But still, great racing ahead. Can't wait.
65 degrees, 0% chance of rain, the forecast for Thursday in Arcadia, California. So we are looking for fast and firm conditions for opening day at Santa Anita. From a gambling standpoint, Jeff mentioned some good fields, some competitive lineups coming up on Thursday at Santa Anita. From a betting standpoint, I want to remind you that the Coast to Coast Pick 5, the wager that matches 5 races from Gulfstream and Santa Anita, returns to the wagering menu this Saturday and Sunday. So every Saturday and Sunday of the spring meets at Santa Anita and Gulfstream throughout the winter and spring, that Coast to Coast Pick 5 is back with the low takeout. So be sure to be on the lookout for that. 2 o'clock Eastern, 11 o'clock a.m. Pacific. First post for the 11 race card Saturday or Thursday at Santa Anita for opening day. We will talk about 5 stakes races in our 5 hot topics. There are 6 stakes races on the card opening day. The first of which is race number 6 on the card, and it's the Lafite Pincay Jr. Grade 2, mile on his 16th on the main track. First time named after Lafite Pincay, one of the great Hall of Fame jockeys. Jeff, at Santa Anita, they had the Shoemaker Mile, of course, for Willie Shoemaker. They had the Eddie D down the hill, the turf sprint for Eddie Delahousse. Now Lafite Pincay Jr., one of the greatest jockeys, certainly of the modern era, getting recognized in just fashion.
It's about time, too, if you think about it. I mean, why not? He was arguably one of the top 2 or 3, or maybe even 1, if you want to put him above Shoe. But equal footing would be fair to have ridden here for all those many years here at Santa Anita, where he could have gone back east. In fact, he did early in his career. I remember going back to New York in 1975 to watch him ride there. But then he decided to stay home and dominate for the better part of 3 decades. And certainly, and he's got a birthday this week as well, so it kind of all comes together for him. So really exciting, and I'm glad they named a legitimate graded stakes race for him. However, it's I'm a little sentimental. I'm not usually that way, but I remember one of the first big races I ever saw in my life was the San Antonio, which is now the Pincay. I saw it in 1959. I was on the steps by the finish line. It was the race that Bug Rush, the filly, the mare actually, set a world record for 1 mile and 1/8 beating Hillsdale. And that, as an 8-year-old, that race I'll never forget. And every time the San Antonio came around, which is obviously not quite the race it used to be, right. I remember that. And now I have to. I don't have to, but I will remember it for Lafite, which is just as good anyway. So the race is going to be the 6th on the card. We won't handicap that race, but it'll kick off a series of stakes races that'll make the Thursday card very, very special.
We talk jockeys because of the Lafitte Pinkai Stakes. We're also going to talk about a specific jockey over the course of opening day at Santa Anita because of his record pursuit. That is one Flavien Pratt. He's set the record already for most North American stakes wins in a calendar year. Now he's poised to pass Jerry Bailey's 2003 mark of 35 graded stakes wins in a calendar year. He's got a chance to do it at Santa Anita on Thursday. Let's take a look at the lineup that Flavien Pratt will have in the saddle. He'll ride races 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, all 6 graded stakes on the card, as he is tied right now with Bailey with those 35 graded stakes wins here in the 2024 season. He's on a couple price horses, Golden Eve and Seal Team. Senior Officer gives him a shot in the middle range. His big favorite on the card is King of Gosford in race number 9. Then he's also got One Magic Filly in with a good chance, and then a long shot to wrap it up with Shadowless. If it doesn't work out for Flavien Pratt on Thursday and breaking the record, he does have a graded stakes mount on the Friday card and the Saturday card. 2 more chances at those graded stakes. So potentially, barring scratches, 8 mounts potentially for Flavien Pratt. He needs 1 to break Jerry Bailey's record. What a season it's been for Flavien Pratt, Jeff. We've talked about it a lot in the last few weeks as he's been pursuing these records, but he's back to where it started for him in the United States and Southern California for this big racing weekend. You have to expect with those 8 graded mounts over the course of 3 days, he's getting 1, 2, over or under might be 2.5.
Yeah, for sure. He's channeling his career now specifically for stakes races. He doesn't care about beating leading rider at a meeting. Who cares, right?
Right.
But if he can lead the nation, North America jockeys in stakes won, money's won, I mean, that's what he wants. He's gotten to a point now where he'll ride anything if because he'll do trainers favors and things and ride cheaper horses if he's asked to. But he really is looking for not only the big horses, but the big, the 3-year-olds, obviously, who isn't, but the big horses that he can ride, in the big races. And he's got his choice now. He's got to a point where he can pretty much pick and choose, and he's earned it. That's how good he is.
Flavien Pratt will keep an eye on his mounts throughout the course of the card. Let's go now to our first topic and our 5 topics on the board this week. We're going to start off in succession. Race number 7, it's the San Gabriel Stakes, grade 2, mile and an eighth on the turf course here. We've got the last 2 winners of the San Gabriel taking on Johannes. And Johannes, of course, Jeff, one of the top turf horses, not one of the top turf horse in Southern California during the 2024 season. Johannes coming off a race in the Breeders' Cup Mile on grass, of course. Now we stretch out to a mile and an eighth. You like his chances in here at a furlong farther?
Well, he's got a lot of ones next to his name. He's got 6 starts at Santa Anita on turf. He's got 6 wins. That's a lot of ones. He's 1 for 1 at a mile and an eighth, so that's fine. He was beaten in the Breeders' Cup Mile, but he ran a winning race, a triple-digit bar, a career top. And here's a recent workout that tells me that even though he hasn't run since the first Saturday in November, he's had a couple of months off. He looks great on the outside, and he's generally not asked to do much in the morning, but he has. Again, I haven't done much with him for 2 months, so they was asked to kind of step it out here, and you can see 59-1 on dirt for a turf horse. Niggled that just a little bit, but I'm telling you, on a track that's not that fast. This tells me that Johannes is really just as good as he's ever been, maybe even better. And that's, trust me, it's good enough to beat this group because he always does.
He's only been a mile and an eighth once. That was in Eddie Reed at Del Mar. He won that handily that day, one of his more visually impressive races of the year. So I don't think the distance is going to be an issue. Dicey Mochara won this race, the San Gabriel, in 2022. Easter won it last year in 2023. So the last 2 winners are back, but the horse you think who could give the most challenge to Johannes in here isn't one of the 2 past winners, but it's a horse coming off a win at Del Mar. Let's talk a little bit about Mi Hermano Ramon, a horse you think maybe has the upset chance.
Well, I don't know whether I can't make him beat Johannes, but I can make him finish second. So if you want to gamble the race here, and you don't want to take 4 to 5, maybe even 3 to 5 on Johannes. Mi Hermano Ramon was a gelding that I always thought was going to be good. He started out really well as a 3-year-old, and then he kind of missed a lot of time. He missed more than a year, and it took a while for him to get the rust off. But I think now, And I think trainer Marklat has said now he's finally where he wants him to be, expects him to run the best race of his career. I don't think it's good enough to beat Johannes, but it's good enough to finish second. And that may be what you're looking at if you want to gamble on this race, because you can't make any money betting on Johannes, I don't think.
Here he is last time out at Del Mar in the Seabiscuit.
Around the turn they go. Sumter and Fast Buck are going to turn for home together with Seal Team in pursuit now. Swings up on the outside and goes right on by, and Astronomer is coming on too. Mi Hermano Ramon is there on the outside. Redistricting in the middle of the turf course. Got a lot of work to do, but is motoring on the far outside, coming down to the wire. Mi Hermano Ramon redistricting, coming late. Mi Hermano Ramon won it. Then redistricting in a photo with Astronomer and Easter.
Team also in that race with a really mistimed move. He made the front a little too soon under Umberto Rispoli. Rispoli, of course, is going to take the mount on the favorite in here, Johannes, his regular mount. That's going to free up Seal Team to Flavien Pratt. If you're looking for a jockey after a mistimed move, Flavien Pratt, the move to him, could put Seal Team in the mix. I think that's the one to fear in here as well. So Johannes, Seal Team, and also Mi Hermano Ramon, the horses that we're looking at in the San Gabriel Stakes, Jeff. Let's change gears now and go to our second topic this week on It's Official as we run through the opening day stakes races at Santa Anita, the Great Race Place, race number 8. A lot of times this is the feature race on the card on opening day at Santa Anita, the Grade 1 Malibu Stakes. And boy, do we have a headline feature here for the 7-furlong race. We've got the Kentucky Derby winner in the comeback spot, none other than Mystic Dan, Jeff. We thought maybe in the spring after a freakish win on a wet track at Oaklawn that he needed a wet track, but in the Kentucky Derby, he ran his race in big time fashion. He ran well in the Preakness over a wet track as well that day. He ran 2/3 of the Triple Crown in really sharp fashion. It made it look like he may be the champion 3-year-old, but then things kind of fell apart in the Belmont Stakes at Saratoga, and we haven't seen him since. Let's pick up and take a look at Mystic Dan training this week at Santa Anita and get your thoughts on where he might be as he comes back as your morning line favorite for the Malibu Stakes.
Well, I didn't know where he was at because I hadn't seen any video of him training. And I made him the morning line favorite on a morning line that was due before this workout. So I made him the favorite, and I'm saying, please look good or do something. Don't look bad. And I got to tell you, he exceeded my expectations. Now, I know going on 37-4 isn't going to prove anything, but he started out galloping past the half-mile pole. He's not even going to be pulled up until midway down the backstretch. This is not your typical 3/8 blowout, but he's moving well. He's under a tight hold. He looks sharp. He looks happy. He had just gotten here via a long van ride a couple of days earlier. And Jeremy, I think he looks terrific. What do you think?
Yeah, he looks good. Look, his big work was at Fairgrounds before hitting the van and coming out here, 59 and change for 5/8. This is his 7th work on the comeback. I think he's definitely well more than fit to run 7/8 of a mile. I think he finishes up nicely here. He's coming into the race very well. If the good Mystic Dan shows up, which he has in most starts, he's only had a couple clunkers throughout his career. The Belmont Stakes, obviously things went wrong on the 3rd start through the Triple Crown in 5 weeks, but a fresh Mystic Dan should be pretty tough in this spot. It's 7/8 of a mile. That's the question. You and I have talked about this a little bit. Look, he's a little hard to pull up here. That's a good sign that he doesn't want to pull up, and really trained well here for the race. 7/8 of a mile is the question mark, but you had mentioned, we talked about him last week a little bit. He won at 5.5 in his second career start at Churchill Downs. He can sprint, he can scoot if you can win 5.5 as a 2-year-old.
Well, not only that, but that race he was battling on the lead. He's not some deep closing. I remember when Ferdinand won this race back in '86. He had won the Derby the previous spring, and Charlie ran him 7/8, and I figured, wow, I don't think he can get up because he doesn't have any real tactical speed. And he was far back early and then came roaring from behind and beat Snow Chief in one of the epic renewals of the Malibu. So it can be done. Especially with a horse who doesn't have to drop way out of it. I mean, and he's going to be fresh. I think he's going to – I don't think he'll be in front, but he'll be somewhere in the second flight in a stalking position. And he's got that turn of foot, that massive turn of foot. Not only did he show in the Derby, but he also showed it when he broke his maiden going 5.5. And looking how he looks, he's got a lot of scope to him now and a lot of strength. He's carrying good weight, breathes beautifully. Now I'm happy I did make him the morning line because I think he's going to be the one to beat. And also, he's got a setup for him, too. I mean, there's speed in the race, and he can sit back and just blast home. And I think that's the kind of trip he's going to get.
Regular rider Brian Hernandez Jr. in town for the Mountford trainer Kenny McPeak. From Kentucky to Fairgrounds to the long van ride out, there were no planes available during the Christmas season through FedEx. We talked about that on the podcast last week, but there was no way to get out here other than the van, and they took the old way going out to Interstate 10. And so Mystic Dan is at Santa Anita. He's trained well at Santa Anita, and he is running opening day in a much anticipated Kentucky Derby winner coming back to run in a race like this time of the year. Could it be enough to get him the Eclipse Award as champion 3-year-old to add to his Kentucky Derby win and preak the second place finish? I don't know. You'd have to upend the likes of the Breeders' Cup Classic winner Sierra Leone to do that. Maybe if he made some kind of ridiculous statement and ran off the screen, maybe he would influence the balloteers.
Yeah. I think that's
3-year-old.
I mean, it'll take something like that. It's not without possibility. I don't think the connections would be unhappy with a nose win, though. But I mean, sure. You could make a case for it if he goes out there and runs like Spectacular Bid did in this race. I don't know if that's going to happen, but I just hope he runs well enough to run well and then throw his hat into the ring among the older horses for after the first of the year. We can use all the help we can get in that division. And if he comes back like he left, or at least like he was in the spring, it'll be kind of exciting.
Now, he is not without competition. We talk about him at the top because A, he's the morning line favorite, and B, he's the Kentucky Derby winner with a lot of hoopla behind him. But this is a deep cast of 8. Ben Tornado's in here, runner-up in the Breeders' Cup Sprint. He's another one traveling from out of town. Raging Torrent also comes out of the Breeders' Cup Sprint, won the Pat O'Brien at Del Mar previously, beating older horses, now back in against straight 3-year-olds, and he's a pure sprinter. Ben Tornado, a pure sprinter. They're kind of more in their game at 7/8 of a mile than some of the Triple Crown types are who are cutting back, like Stronghold, the winner of the Santa Anita Derby last spring. He's cutting back and trip in here. And of course, you've got to talk about Bob Baffert. We haven't mentioned any of his horses yet, but he's got Pilot Commander in here, and he's also got Imagination. Baffert's won this race 3 of the last 4 years and 6 times overall, which is tied with Richard Mandela for the most all time. Ben Tornado would seem like the biggest challenge and threat in here to the Kentucky Derby winner, though. And he also got some training since he arrived at Santa Anita. He got some training over the track here on December the 19th. Jeff, let's watch Ben Tornado. He comes off fast out of the gate. He comes out firing here. This wasn't loping into the 5/8 move. He got rolling pretty quickly.
I'm surprised they asked him to work this fast a week out from the race. He's got his speed. Again, I think this is a situation where we really haven't done with him. He's off 2 months. Maybe he needs the race, or needs a good stiff workout to make sure he's fit to go 7/8. And he gave it to him. This is a 58 and change bullet, work fastest of 40. He's not really being asked that much. I don't, they're not pushing and shoving on him and working him in company and letting him roll. I mean, it's still a very fast work for a very fast horse. You would have to think from the rail, though, Jeremy, he's got to go. He's not going to be waiting around for anybody. And that might not actually be a bad thing, because I wouldn't want them to try to rate him to get 7/8. You got to use your best weapon, your speed. And from the rail, that'll force him to do just that.
Tough race, contentious race when you've got Brad Cox and Flavien Pratt with a horse who's 3/4 of a length from being undefeated in 2 starts, named Senior Officer, who you're really not even going to talk about when you get up and down the lineup of this race in terms of the credentials of the equines. But when you got Pratt and Cox on kind of a afterthought, that tells you've got an excellent race. That horse coming off a 94 Beyer speed figure last time. Ben Tornado, a 102. Raging Torrents topped 104 twice. Maybe he's the fastest sprinter in this race. To me, I kind of like might be the value in Raging Torrent, with Ben Tornado likely to get play, Mystic Dan likely to get play because of their names and their reputations. Raging Torrent might slip in as a little value in here, Jeff.
Let's not forget he beat the Chosen Run in a grade 1 race when he was a 3-year-old at Del Mar, and now he's drawn outside. So he's got the luxury of kind of stalking, pouncing, and going if you figure that Ben Tornado is going to bust out there and go. And I really do think you're going to see Pilot Commander try to go with him, with Raging Torrent drafting in and folding over to sit third, and then have that aim if he's good enough. We'll see.
Right.
One note on Senior Officer: I made him 5-1 in the morning line. I went back and watched both of his races at Churchill, and on the one end, I was kind of surprised that they were going to run him in here. He's eligible to non-winners of 2. He's a lightly raced Into Mischief colt. Obviously, he'd be worth a ton if he were going to win it.
Right.
But I was kind of surprised that that Brad went that way, and now I understand that he might not even run. So
Okay.
so if he comes out of the race, then it wouldn't surprise me. And if he's scratched, obviously that's going to affect the morning line because I got 5-1 to have to that I have to cover up now with. So I could drop Ben Tornado, and I can certainly drop Mystic Dan a point maybe, and maybe from 9-2 I can make Raging Torrent 4-1 or 7-2. Because I think you're right. I think he's right there with these, and the trip that he's going to get is going to make him a major contender. So we'll check and see if Senior Officer is scratched. And again, this couple of weeks, they usually have 2 scratched days, a couple of days before, and then the one in the morning of the race. But this now, for this first couple of weeks, only the morning of the race. So there are going to be some scratches. I'm going to be busy in the morning. I can tell you, adjusting the morning line, especially if Senior Officer, in fact, does come out.
Let's go to our third topic this week on It's Official. It's the Mathis Mile preview. We go to race number 9 on the card, the Mathis Mile. Grade 2 stakes race in here. You've got 2-time winners Phil D'Amato and Mike McCarthy, each with 2 horses in this race. They usually have runners pointed to the Mathis Mile, and they will again. So, Jeff, let's start our discussion with the Mathis Mile with King of Gosford. We don't have to go far to find that one at the top of the page, the one horse in here. This might be Flavien Pratt's best chance to get that 36th and record graded stakes win on the season. Phil D'Amato trains. We mentioned 2-time winner of this race in 2016 and 2017. Tell us a little bit about King of Gosford coming off that runner-up in the Hollywood Derby.
I watched him run in his first 3 races. He was sprinting, and he looked like a sprinter to me. I thought maybe he could go a mile, maybe a little farther, but his run in the Hollywood Derby at 1 mile and 8 from off the pace was a revelation. I think they found out that he, can go farther, but I still think 1 mile is his best distance. And he's got the rail. He's got Pratt, who won on him 2 races back in the Let It Ride at Del Mar at 1 mile on grass. And from that rail post position, he's going to get a great job. Now, here's the key to this race. Without Curlin's chaos in the race, and I've been told he's going to scratch, he was the logical pace setter. Now they're going to be crawling the first part. And King of Gosford's got that he's got enough speed to take advantage of it. If Flavien wants to move him out of there and make the lead, he could. Now, here's a workout. You can see him. He's last of 3 here, Jeremy.
They're in the black sleeves.
Him back. This was before they knew there'd be no speed in the race because this was last week. But I thought he worked good. And that horse on the outside of him is also in the race. I think his name is Senua, another D'Amato horse. I thought he worked really well as well. But this tells me King of Gosford is holding his form.
Yeah, no question about that. Senua in the race with Antonio Fresu aboard. Fresu won this race last year with Watsonville, so he'll look for back-to-back wins in the race. Maybe D'Amato's got him with the exacta. We get to see him in the work beforehand, courtesy of XBTV. I believe there are 80 workouts from XBTV available for the 11-race card for opening day, so be sure to go to xbtv.com and check out all the workouts. All you need is a first account, free to sign up for. Just sign up, register, and get into XBTV and dig into those workouts for the Santa Anita meet. The crews have been out there in the morning doing an excellent job gathering as many as they can. And on a big card like this at Santa Anita, sometimes that splitting of the hairs that you need, workouts aren't the end-all, be-all in the handicapping process, but I like to say they're a great tiebreaker. I've got a couple different horses that I'm looking at, and I think they're fairly similar in ability. I want to go for value, obviously, and to get the best value of horses I think have a similar chance. But if something like a good-looking workout or a poor workout performance by a horse can send you one direction or another, that can be sometimes what tips the scales when you're handicapping.
Well, not only that, but, now at Santa Anita, the trainers, when they work their horses, they have to submit a list of those horses that are working that morning, and we get that list. So the people in the press box who that work for us that spot these horses, they know who's working. So they do a really good job of finding these horses, knowing they're going to work. They know which ones we need to know about. You know what I'm saying? So if you get a comeback
Right.
or a horse that hasn't been out, it's working, we're going to zero in on that horse and get it for you. So if you use the xbtv.com workouts, chances are, not always, because sometimes they work 4 or 5 at a time, but chances are, if it's an important work, we're going to get it. And that's why I was so happy that they were able to locate, zero in, and record Mystic Dan's work, because I really needed to see that, and I'm glad I saw it.
The Mathis Mile, of course, a turf mile. I like to look for specialists at the mile trip on turf in these kind of races. Sometimes it's a middle distance, right? And so people think, well, maybe my sprinter can get it. Maybe my router can get it. A lot of dirt horses try turf miles if they're going to try turf for the first time. I like to find a horse who's proven over a turf mile and a specialist. And in this race, that could be Stay Hot. This is a horse who's run 4 turf miles, 3 wins, has 3 wins in the second and 5 starts over the Santa Anita turf. This is the right spot for this horse getting back. Has gone a little bit longer than probably his best in the last few. And now Stay Hot goes to Juan Hernandez because Antonio Fresu, the regular rider, sticks with the motto horse in here, Sanois. So Stay Hot gets Hernandez. I think that's no skin there that you're losing Fresu, who's an excellent rider. But Hernandez, of course, top jockey in Southern California nowadays. I think Stay Hot's going to play in this race. He's been close, going longer recently, Jeff. But I think the return to a mile is going to suit him pretty well.
And he's beaten King of Gosford. He did that at a mile. That was at Del Mar. But to be fair, King of Gosford had a terrible trip that day. But no, I think Stay Hot will lay his body down. He'll fire his best shot. I think at this stage of his career, not only based on his form, but what we just saw in the workout, that King of Gosford has elevated his game, whereas Stay Hot is pretty close to being the same horse, which is nothing wrong with that. Don't get me wrong. But I think the upside for King of Gosford is such where, I mean, he's going to have to run into trouble, I think, to lose this race. And I don't think in a small field in a paceless race with Pratt back aboard, I'm not looking as at a possibility. A 2 for 2 for Flavien riding King of Gosford. He knows which buttons to push, and I think he'll at 6 to 5 in the morning line and likely to go lower. I think he looks like a logical single for me.
If it hasn't happened to that point, cue the winner's circle celebration for King of Gosford and get the plaque ready for Flavien Pratt, looking for that 36th graded stakes win of the year. Now, coming up next, we'll talk on topic 4 about the Brea Stakes. It's a race 7 furlongs on the main track for the 3-year-old fillies. It's the sister race, if you will, to the Malibu. The La Brea has been Bob Baffert's playground over the years. He's won this race 9 times. He's got a lot of the major players in this year's race as well. Baffert's got Hope Road in here. He's got, who else has he got? Baffert's also got Kinza in this particular spot, both multiple graded stakes winners and proven commodities over the track. But contention runs deep in this race. It's not just kind of find Baffert and circle him and decide between his, because Richard Mandela's loaded with a couple in here as well. Tamara's a horse who started her career like she was going to be the next big thing. Then she suffered an injury, came back once. She makes her second start off a long layoff after missing a full calendar year. So this is a race that's got a lot of good options. One Magic Filly beat the big sprinter earlier this year in the Chillingworth Stakes. The name's escaping me. Mark Glatt's sprinter, who was running through everybody throughout the summer. So One Magic Filly's had a heck of a season already as well. This is a good-looking group in the La Brea.
You mentioned Baffert. He's actually got 4 in here. He's got Splendora, who's won her last 2 by a combined 12 lengths. I got her at 12 to 1, which tells you what kind of race this is.
Yeah.
And Baffert's got another one named Cavaliere. She's undefeated in 2 starts. I got her at 10 to 1. I mean, I got a call from a friend of mine that says, how could you make this horse this high? I said, fine, I'll drop it if you tell me who I have to raise, because the line's got to balance. And I've got Hope Road, who's perfect 4 for 4 in she's a perfect 4 for 4 since Baffert took her over, and she's done nothing wrong. And one thing I want to mention about Hope Road is that she won her last race, the Bayakoa Grade 3, beating old horses, two turning on a mile. She won the race, and she actually bled in that race, no Lasix. So for me, that was really impressive for me. And here she is breezing the other day. I wanted to see if she showed any effects of that, because she did have to work to get to the...
They're still trying to call you about that morning line, Jeff.
Your
exactly. Phone's ringing off the hook.
Exactly. Right. Hang on for a second as I get rid of this call. But
Well, we'll take a look here. Yeah,
go ahead.
You take care of that, and I'll mute you, and we'll look at this workout here. This is Hope Road in action. Of course, earlier this year, Hope Road won a Torrey Pines. Jeff mentioned the Bayacoa and bleeding in that race. She's coming here in the workout December 14th at Santa Anita, passing the quarter pole. Juan Hernandez is going to ride her back here. He's won this race the last 2 years in a row. He won it with Peter Miller trainee last year, Baffert 2 years ago. So Hernandez looking for the personal hat trick in this race, and Hope Road comes home rather nicely in this particular spot as we bring Jeff back in. What did you make of the work, Jeff?
I was impressed with it. I was happy to see it. She was cruising. She was not laboring at all. She was galloping out fine. So if she did have any kind of reaction to winning despite bleeding at Del Mar, it surely didn't show here. The thing about her is that 4 for 4 here, or 4 for 4 since Baffert took over. She's won over the track. Numbers-wise, she's good enough to win, but she's not dominant, if you know what I mean.
Mm-hmm.
I mean,
Right.
got others in here that are almost as fast. So even though she was 30 cents on the dollar last time, 50 cents on the dollar before that, and 70 cents on the dollar before that, winning all of those races, I've got her at 3-1. And I figured she doesn't look on form like a 3-1 shot. But on the other hand, to me, she's going to have to run her race to win because there's so many in here that are good enough. I mean, One Magic Filly, even though I don't think she ran the best race of her career when she was in the Breeders' Cup Filly in her sprint, she finished 6th, beaten less than 3 lengths against the best older mares. She was below form in that, but on numbers, she's just as fast as Hope Road. So I made her 4-1 with Flavien Pratt taking over for the first time, and there are going to be people out there that think that's going to be a good gamble at 4-1, and it might be. So it's that kind of race. And there are others in here that I mentioned that are 10, 12-1 that are better than your normal 10 to 12-1 shot. You just have to make room for them. The line's got to balance. And I mean, top to bottom, you've got, like I mentioned, the 20-1 I've got on a filly named Sandy Bottom from Michael McCarthy. She's undefeated in 3 starts, and she's a graded stakes winner. She's 20-1. I mean, you look at that, feel like that. How could she be 20-1? But it's one of the strongest, deepest editions of the La Brea I've seen in years. And these are really, really good fillies.
This is one of the better dirt races at Santa Anita in a long time. You know, we think about a deep race with a lot of options. You almost default to the turf, right? That there just aren't that many dirt races that are this competitive, especially at this kind of level. A grade 1 stakes at this level. I mean, we haven't even talked about the 2-4 finishers in the Santa Anita Oaks in the spring. They're both on the comeback trail. Kinza earlier this year, she was 1-2 in the Santa Anita Oaks and ran second for Baffert. She's back for the first time since April. In that race, the 2-1 second choice was Copian, who was one of our stars of tomorrow on this podcast last November when she won her debut at Del Mar. She looked like she could be any kind. We had Copian working out here recently. Let's take a look at her work here for Richard Mandela. She has been away since April, Jeff, but man, she started her career like a house of fire. Won at Del Mar last November, won the Santa Ynez easily by 5 3/4 at 1-5 in her second career start. Once they sent her long, she was second in the Las Virgenes behind Kinza, and then she backed up in the Santa Anita Oaks at a mile and a 16th. Something went amiss there when she was 4th, beaten 16. But like Tamara, she went on the shelf and she's back for Richard Mandela. What do you make the way she's galloping here?
She works great here. I mean, she works 3/4 and 13 after the 7/8 blow, never asked to drop. I mean, she looks to me at least as good, if not better, than she looked when she woke her maiden first time out and won the Santa Ynez. Now, after that, she went the wrong way, but she's fresh. We know she can sprint. She's won a graded stakes at this track, at this distance, did so as a 3-year-old. Now she comes off the bench. I'm betting on her. At least I'll use her. And she's 12-1 in the morning line. I didn't want to make her 12-1, but I had to. Yeah, you know, the line's got to balance. And for that reason, I think Copian, again, she's emblematic of what you're going to get in a race like this. You better bring your A game if you're going to expect to win, because there's going to be more than one of them that's going to. And
there's yet one more horse I want to mention here, and I hate to do it because we've already talked about just about every horse in the field. But what about Sugarfish coming off a fifth in the Breeders' Cup Distaff? Won the Zenyatta Stakes. Starts back, gets blinkers on. This horse won the Summertime Oaks in the spring, or in the summer, I should say. Jeff Mullins trainee. This horse has the best brisk late pace figures in the field, and it's a race with a ton of hot pace to it. If they go fast, Sugarfish on the cutback here to 7/8 of a mile is going to be trucking late. I don't know if she can pass all of them, but if you're betting to try in this race, and you probably should, given the depth and the field size and everything with it, tries and supers are going to be a great gamble in this race. Sugarfish is one who's going to be passing a lot of tired horses late. How many can she pass? I don't know if she can pass them all to win. Probably not, because just the brilliance at 7/8 of a mile of some horses likely to show through here and put the other speed away at some point. So a deep closer like this probably doesn't win this race, but very well could run second or third. Great gambling race. And like I say, I can't remember a dirt race at Santa Anita in the Graded Stakes Company with this kind of depth and this kind of quality and quantity of field size. La Brea, to me, is the star gambling race on opening day.
And by the way, you mentioned Sugarfish. Look at her form, Jeremy, real quick. Draw a line through her 2 Del Mar races and then tell me how she looks.
Yeah, her Santa Anita record's 4 wins a second from 6 races. So, yeah. Yes. And she is going to be a bomb in there.
And she's going to have pace to run at. When you have a big field of contention, nobody takes back. They all want to get position. And if Bays gives Sugarfish the kind of waiting ride she needs and just cuts her loose at the quarter pole.
Yeah.
Again, 10-1 in the morning line. I didn't want to make her that high, but man, she's got a long shot chance.
Very interesting race to La Brea. Let's go to our 5th and final topic this week on It's Official as we preview opening day at Santa Anita with the 11th and final race on the card, the Grade 1 American Oaks, 1.25 miles, originally a race at Hollywood Park, moved to Santa Anita. Jeff, is this one about the shippers? The 3-year-old fillies have kind of had their say so far on the year in Southern California. None of them have kind of stood out. The 2 horses coming west for this particular race, She Feels Pretty and Kathy and Marissa, to me, look like complete standouts on paper. To me, it's one of the 2 invading California here.
Yes, it is. And we do have a scratch or intended scratch in this race. A filly that I didn't think had much chance in this race, but I think is going to win the Frankel the next day, and that's number 13, Rashmi, who drew poorly in this race, then was entered back against older mares the next day and drew a great post in a paceless race. I mean, you just got lucky there. So don't expect to see Rashmi in this race. Jonathan Thomas will certainly rate for. And I thought she would have had a little bit of a look here until I realized just how good She Feels Pretty and Catherine and Marissa are. I mean, the 2 Eastern invaders, these are exceptional race mares, 3-year-old fillies turning 4. As you can see, She Feels Pretty, who's working in the dark here just a couple of days ago, went in 48-2, but she came her last quarter in sub 24. And you can see how easily she's going for a filly who's strictly a grass horse. She's working on dirt here, handling it just fine. And she's going to really pick it up and, really impressive here in the final stages. As you can see her. I just think that she is really, really good. And it's going to take a really, really good filly to beat her.
John Velasquez, the Hall of Famer, comes to rider. He's the regular pilot for Cherie DeVoe. When she won the Queen Elizabeth II Challenge Cup, the Grade 1 at Keeneland during the fall, she was the star of the meet to me. Nobody was more visually impressive winning at Keeneland during the 2024 fall meet than She Feels Pretty. And my goodness, does she look good here. They didn't throw her to the Wolves and go in the Breeders' Cup. There's really not a spot for her necessarily in the Breeders' Cup unless she wanted to go long in the Breeders' Cup filly and mare turf. They waited for this race instead, and I think they made a smart move in here. She Feels Pretty. The question will be the 1.25 miles. She's never been beyond 1 mile and 3/16, and she did get beat in the Belmont Oaks Invitational. So if she's going to get beat the 1.25 miles, does she have the same late kick? According to the brisk late pace figures, she only got a 93 in that 1 mile and 3/16. Her shorter races, she's usually around 101, 102 for a late pace figure. So she didn't have quite the same kick. Will she have the same kick over 1.25 miles? That's the question. The filly who does have the kick finishing up, though, and was already proven at distance, is Kathy and Marissa for Rick Dutrow. This is another shipper coming west. She, too, got to work over the track on the main track, of course, here at Santa Anita. Jeff, let's go through this workout a little bit for this daughter of American Pharoah. Dutrow gets Frankie Dettori to ride. Dettori rode her last time at Kentucky Downs when she won the Dueling Ground Oaks over 1 mile and 5/16. So she's actually cutting back a little bit here in trip.
I mean, she looks like a dirt filly, even though she's not. I mean, she's a stout filly. Her 2 dirt races were poor, but she's getting over the ground really well here. She's going in 47 flat. You don't, I mean, if this could have been a 49-2, and it wouldn't surprise me because she's under a stout hole, beautiful athletic mover, looks like a machine out there.
Yeah.
And even though she got beaten at Saratoga Oaks, her next race in the Dueling Grounds Oaks, I mean, she won that race with contempt for the competition. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
She was so much the best. And that was back in September. And I think she's done some growing up since then. We haven't seen him since then, but you can see this workout back earlier this month, and she looks so spot on and so strong, and she's tactical. I mean, she switches off beautifully in the afternoon and then blasts home. And I can tell you this, that as good as She Feels Pretty is, if there's some slippage in her form, based on the fact that she's not really a 1.25 mile filly, I mean, and then Kathy and Marissa is going to be hard to beat because I know she'll run this far, and she'll switch off and she'll blast home. And these are 2 exceptional fillies, and this is a decent field. There's some nice horses in here, but nobody that has the resume that either one of these 2. I mean, if they win their race, it's 1-2 or 2-1, whatever order you want, and I don't think anybody else has got to look.
And if you're looking in late in the day in the pick 5s, in fact, we've got a 5 million point hit and split in the late pick 5 with First Bet and Express Bet coming up on Thursday or this weekend, this Thursday opening day at Santa Anita that you'll want to take advantage of. If you're playing that late pick 5 or pick 6, this looks like a too deep situation. You hate to go too deep in a race because it doubles the cost of your ticket. Instead of multiplying by 1 on the last end, you're multiplying by 2. But in this case, I think it's worth every penny. I really do feel like this is a 2-horse race, and both of them are exceptional. And I don't see a flaw in either one that would make me just say, I've got to take the other one, you know? So I think this is a true 2-deep kind of race from a gambling standpoint. That's the American Oaks wrapping up at a 1.25 mile final on the card on Saturday. Jeff, this is just the beginning of the handicapping process. Of course, everybody will get a chance to see scratches and updates and things like that on race day. I know you're going to have some written content for folks as well on the Express Bet and First Bet websites and at santanita.com each and every day of the meet. So this is going to be a lot of fun. In between the holidays, we'll sneak some more glances in at the past performances and then really get after it on Thursday morning.
Yeah, by the way, we just did the last 5 races on the card. There are 11 on the card, and some of the early races are really, really good as well. So I've done a rather substantial amount of writing for this day. I'll have all 11 races. I've actually completed it. I have to adjust a little bit because the scratches are coming into me as the morning line maker. They give me a heads up on them, but they won't actually be announced until Thursday morning, I should say. But no, it's very good. I'll have my now full card race by race analysis and wagering strategies online at expressbet.com, also santanita.com and xbtv.com. And hopefully it'll help you out a little bit and then go from there. But I can't wait because every race on the card is worth watching. And if it may be there are a couple of short prizes. There's a maiden race that intrigues me a lot. For a couple of Baffert horses. Well, but all the other races are very, very competitive. So going to be a great, great opening day Thursday at Santa Anita.
Yeah, race 2 with maiden special weight for the 2-year-olds. Could be some Derby trail horses towards the Santa Anita Derby emerge out of that one. Be sure to check it out. It's hard to keep track of the days of the week around these holidays and things like that. We're doing this on a Monday, not Tuesday. But I do know this. Jeff and I will be back on Friday in our normal time slot for our weekend preview. That's the First Call podcast. So be sure to check us out for that one. Jeff and I will be back for First Call on Friday, handicapping 8 stakes races for you for Saturday. But we hope you enjoyed this look ahead to Thursday on this week's It's Official, as it's opening day for the 90th race meeting at Santa Anita. Can't wait for that. Enjoy it. First post is 2 Eastern, 11 Pacific on Thursday. Jeff and I will be back on Friday. Good luck, everybody. Merry Christmas, happy holidays, and we'll talk to you in a few days.